WWDC wrapped up in grand fashion, full of software enhancements and shiny new animations. But buried beneath the applause and stage lights was a glimpse into the future of Apple hardware. While the company didn't outright say it, all signs point toward the iPhone 17 getting a major redesign. This wasn't just another software presentation. Hidden in plain sight was a blueprint for the next big thing from Apple, and we were all watching it unfold live. This year's developer conference had a very different tone. After a turbulent stretch filled with criticism, lawsuits, and declining sales in certain sectors, the atmosphere at WWDC seemed refreshingly hopeful. That optimism wasn't just a vibe, it was a statement. Apple is clearly recalibrating. The liquid glass aesthetic that dominated the visual theme wasn't just about visuals. It was a subtle but deliberate indication of what's coming in both hardware and software. Liquid glass may sound like a marketing buzzword, but if you dig deeper, you start to see it as a code for an entirely new direction in design. It represents transparency, minimalism, fluidity, and these values are increasingly aligned with the next iPhone's rumored hardware evolution. Industry insiders are already talking about a phone with nearly invisible bezels, no notches, and possibly a seamless all-glass body. Let's pause on that for a moment. The dynamic island was first introduced as a creative workaround to the notch, a clever way to turn a limitation into a feature. But with the liquid glass UI and its focus on edge-to-edge content and visual fluidity, the current blacked-out cutout seems increasingly out of place. What if Apple is ready to take the next step? Shrinking the sensors into one smaller pill shape would allow the UI to finally match the sleek vision Apple is now promoting. There's speculation that Apple might even remove the dynamic island entirely. This would be a bold move, but Apple has a history of introducing something as a bridge and then phasing it out once they perfect a better solution. If this happens, we might see a single under-display camera sensor or something so small and invisible that the software won't need to work around it anymore. That, in itself, would feel like liquid glass, technology that simply melts into the background. The design shift may not stop at the front of the device. The rear camera bump, long criticized for its inelegance, could be restructured into a horizontal strip, possibly glass-covered, mirroring the aesthetics of iOS 20 SIX's layout changes. Apple could use this opportunity to create harmony between software and hardware. Rounded interface elements, flowing transitions, and clean typography reflect the same principles that a new iPhone design would embody. Then there's the question of naming. Apple might finally be ready to ditch the numbering system entirely. It sounds radical, but it would follow a trend Apple started years ago with the iPad and MacBook lines. Just as the iPad doesn't scream iPad 11 or iPad 12, the iPhone could transition to simple names like iPhone, iPhone Air, iPhone Pro, and iPhone Pro Max. It's cleaner, more elegant, and allows Apple to focus on the experience rather than just the generation. Another sign pointing to a hardware overhaul is iOS 26 itself. The new OS introduces a host of features that demand more from the device. Whether it's the new liquid glass effects, spatial transitions, or always-on widgets that interact with live data, the next iPhone will need power and finesse to execute these features without compromise. This is where Apple's chip game comes into play. The A18 chip, which is expected to debut with the iPhone 17, will likely be tailored to these UI demands with stronger GPU performance and better AI processing. Apple also introduced some meaningful updates to iPadOS that may influence how future iPhones behave. The iPad is finally getting desktop-class multitasking, more powerful window management, and even enhancements that mirror macOS features. It wouldn't be far-fetched to think Apple wants to bring some of these elements to the iPhone as well, especially on the Pro models. Split-screen multitasking on an iPhone could finally be a reality, allowing users to truly take advantage of the power inside these devices. The tech world has been asking for something similar to Samsung's DeX mode for years, where you connect your phone to a monitor and get a desktop interface. With Apple Silicon proving its capability in Macs and iPads, it's entirely possible that Apple will create a new desktop-like environment for iPhones, particularly the Pro Max version. This would create a cohesive user experience across all Apple devices and push the iPhone further into productivity territory. Interestingly, All of this change is happening while Apple finally seems to be addressing long-standing user complaints. For example, the Genmoji system is being reworked, iPadOS is more desktop-friendly, and customization options are finally appearing where they were previously denied. Apple appears to be listening, and the iPhone 17 might be the ultimate proof of that transformation. We also can't ignore the accessory ecosystem. New MagSafe wallets like the geomagnetic wallet stand are setting a new bar for what iPhone accessories can do. With Find My integration, powerful magnets, and ergonomic design, it's clear Apple is paving the way for iPhones to be more connected and versatile than ever. These accessories could be tailored specifically for the new flatback or glass-centric design of the iPhone 17. And while these accessories aren't made by Apple directly, their compatibility and precision hint at some level of behind-the-scenes coordination. Apple doesn't usually allow third-party accessories to fit so well unless they know what the device will look like. That coordination itself might be a hint that the design is finalized and these companies are preparing ahead of the official unveiling. As we approach the typical September reveal window, anticipation is going to skyrocket. Leakers are already lining up with renders and CADs, analysts are making predictions, and developers are reading between the lines of iOS code. But all signs are pointing in the same direction. Apple is on the verge of one of its biggest iPhone shifts in years. The hardware will reflect the software and the philosophy is shifting. Apple wants to create devices that disappear into your life, not ones that stand out. Seamless, immersive, elegant. These are the terms Apple will likely champion when the iPhone 17 launches. And with liquid glass acting as the central theme, both visually and symbolically, it's clear this next iPhone is going to be about refinement and reinvention rather than just iteration. So now the spotlight is on September. Will we see the complete elimination of the dynamic island? Will Apple finally bring true multitasking and possibly even a desktop mode to the iPhone? Will the name iPhone 17 even survive, or are we headed into a cleaner future without numbers? The answers are closer than ever and Apple has already begun telling the story. Quietly, subtly, and through a design language that we're just beginning to understand. Until then, the only thing certain is that the iPhone is evolving again. It's becoming more fluid, more powerful, and more invisible. The age of liquid glass has begun.